Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to another edition of the DFS Hockey Report. It's Monday, October 27th. I hope everyone's having a fine Monday afternoon. Zach, welcome in.
Thank you, Brock. Happy to be here. An interesting and extremely gross 2-game slate today.
Yeah, you know what? We were joking about it in the Discord a little bit. Look for a period of time this morning, Jeremy Swayman was going to sit tonight. It might be Jonas Korpisalo. Did not end up being the case. Levi Merlinen versus Jonas Korpisalo would have been at least providing a little bit of excitement. But yeah, I guess I shouldn't bury the lead here. Let's get to tonight's 2-game slate. Where is our... Where is... There we go. Nice. I got to get better at this. I've struggled this year. No mistakes last year, and I feel like every episode right now, just can't get it right. Our starting goalies got Tristan Jarry for the Pittsburgh Penguins against Joel Hofer for the St. Louis Blues. It'll be Levi Merlinen versus Jeremy Swayman. All 4 goalies confirmed. The slate starts at 7, and the second game starts at 7:30, so should be a nice early night for us, and hopefully we can fill our pockets. I remember there was a slate like this last year, and we did really well, like a super early 2-game slate, and we just absolutely crushed it. There is the potential for us to do so again tonight based on the charts. The charts compared to own percentage tonight are spicy. This is going to be a fun episode. It could be a fun 2-game slate if the charts are right, because boy, oh boy, we are getting contrarian tonight here on the DFS Hockey Report. And then obviously don't want to bury the lead. We got a 16-game NHL Frozen Frenzy slate that starts tomorrow at 6 p.m. Eastern. So as little fun as tonight's 2-game slate is, tomorrow's 16-game slate is going to just be pure bananas. I'm probably going to have to build the charts tonight. Let's get into it, Zach. We got the Pittsburgh Penguins hosting the St. Louis Blues. The Penguins, despite Joel Hofer getting the start for the Blues, are still small home underdogs, plus 102, 3.0 implied total. The Blues at 3.2. Not only is Joel Hofer getting the start, but St. Louis Blues are going to be without both Robert Thomas and who's the other guy? Jake Neighbors. So these are the projected lines for tonight. Buchnevich, Suter, Snuggerud on the top line. You got Joseph, Shen, Kyrou on the second line. Holloway, Sundqvist, Texier on the third line. So interesting spot here for the Penguins, to say the least. When we take a look at the stacks, though, St. Louis 1 and St. Louis 2 grade out still as the top 2 of the top 3 lines to target in this game. Then you got Pittsburgh 2, who's been red hot. Pittsburgh 1, who, again, another injury to note on tonight's slate. Rickard Rakell out 6 to 8 weeks. So Philip Hallander, rookie for the Pittsburgh Penguins, former second-round pick, he'll move up to the top line with Sidney Crosby and Brian Rust. Second line remains intact. Ville Koivunen comes back up from the AHL. He'll round out that third line. But as Hallander moves up the lineup, it's actually going to be Ben Kindle. Whoa. Jordan Kyrou's not supposed to be there. It'll be Ben Kindle that moves up to the top power play unit for the Pittsburgh Penguins. So 2 young rookies getting the chance here to make their mark in this Pittsburgh Penguins lineup. But Zach, while I fix the St. Louis Blues power play, because evidently Jordan Kyrou's on there twice, why don't you break down tonight's matchups in this one?
Yeah, pretty interesting game here. St. Louis 1 and 2 both grading out pretty well on the charts. Here's the second and third best lines to target overall in this slate tonight. This game does have the lower pace score of the two. The St. Louis side definitely has the better of the matchups. From a line stats perspective, St. Louis 1 generating a ton of great offense, really struggling to capitalize. St. Louis 2 not really generating as much offensively and also really struggling to capitalize. This St. Louis side has been just absolutely caved in by their goaltending so far this season here. So, I think it's an interesting game. I like the idea of kind of attacking this Pittsburgh side, but boy, like St. Louis 1 and St. Louis 2 coming in significantly lower owned than that Pittsburgh 1 side. I think it's also worth talking about Pittsburgh 2 here as well, grading out as the 4th best line overall to target on this slate. They have been really good. They have the worst matchup of anybody on this Pittsburgh side here, but 3.9 goals for per hour of ice time this year. Anthony Mantha, Justin Brazeau have looked shockingly tremendous alongside of Evgeny Malkin so far this season. So I think for me, probably going to be willing to fade some of that Pittsburgh one chalk here and just try and get yourself a little bit different. I like the look of this Pittsburgh second line despite the brutal matchup score. But St. Louis won, man, with Pius Suter, Snuggerud, and Buchnevich up there. That is a very interesting, very cheap line to get to.
Yeah, I think that this is a super fun game. To be honest with you, like with Hofer getting the start, I think that definitely piques my interest on Pittsburgh a little bit, right? Like the Pittsburgh top line, Hallander at $3,500, I think is interesting, right? Like such a good value option. I really like Ben Kindle tonight. He's going to see some ownership at $2,800. When we take a look at the projections for the forwards, in terms of points per thousand, we've got Ben Kindle fourth best value tonight. The shot volume has been really solid. He also kills some penalties, so his block volume is pretty good. Could stand to see a few more minutes, but at $2,800, seeing that top power play unit exposure, I think there's enough kind of value here in Pittsburgh to get there. And like, I don't mind, I think that perhaps, if I'm playing Pittsburgh one, I'm going to have to try to get a little funky, right? Like you're going to have to maybe include some Kindle in those stacks to try to get a little different and get some power play correlation there. Cause yeah, Crosby and Rust are just outrageous chalk tonight. And I think it's fine. I don't think I'm going to get to 35% on a 2-game slate, but I do have a little bit of interest in the second line. Just hope that they can stay scorching hot. Their price really hasn't changed much, so there's not really no reason not to play them a little bit. I think that they are interesting line. I think even this third line to some extent is okay, right? They're not really seeing much ownership. You can kind of anchor them with Kindell and his in his power play exposure, but Tommy Novak, no slouch, guy that's got reasonable shot volume, not quite the same player he was during his big minutes in Nashville, but Billy Koivunen, we saw him come up with 7 assists in 10 games or something like that last year. Like he's a capable young player. He's off to a great start in the AHL. So I think there's ways to target this Pittsburgh Penguins team and get a little bit different. Granted, the matchups are not ideal, but with Hofer starting, I don't really mind the Pittsburgh Penguins side of things. On the flip side, the Blues, man, this top line, you outlined it. The underlying metrics are fantastic. And then you factor in that, Snuggerud is just $3,200. You got Suter just $3,300. Like they're so cheap and really not seeing that much ownership, which is kind of surprising. The Penguins are not a very good defensive team. They give the most shot attempts against in the entire NHL. It's funny that this is the lower pace score of the two, because this feels like the much higher event game of the two, and one that I really, really like the Blues. I much prefer this top line to this second line. Like I don't mind Shen and Kyrou in a mini stack, but I think this top line is where most of my ownership is coming in. When you take a look again at the matchups here, 100% matchup score for this third line. Am I going to get to St. Louis 3 with these offensive metrics? Probably not. But I mean, Dylan Holloway as a one-off might not be terrible at 5,800. Bit slow start this year, but don't mind getting there. I think you could make a case for these two sub 1% owned guys with the 100% matchup score. You just got to get crazy on a 2-game slate. And when you take a look at the power play report, Penguins have the number 1 power play advantage on the night. The number 3 ranked power play going up against the 14th ranked PK. The Blues, as you mentioned, offensively struggling a little bit here, 27th on the power play. What are your thoughts here? Any additional, I guess not, I already got your thoughts, but what are your additional thoughts based on any of these value stacks?
Yeah, I think they're interesting. I mean, I think the biggest concern that I have with playing St. Louis tonight is that they're just really struggling to score. The offense just really hasn't been there much for them this year. So, again, it's not like Pittsburgh is this tremendous defensive team or anything like that here. But I think that's really my only bit of hesitation here with this St. Louis side of things. Their power play hasn't been able to kind of get going here. Really not generating a whole lot of looks there. So I don't know, man. It's going to be an interesting game for sure. But I do agree with you to a certain extent that I do think this game does pose some interesting things. And I really like the shout on Pittsburgh 3 as well. I've been playing some Ben Kindell so far this year. I think he's a great value play, at the price tag of $2,800 here tonight. And it's really not like he's drawing a ton of ownership, like 16% on a 2-game slate really isn't a whole lot. So I got some interest here for sure. I'm fascinated to see the way this game kind of plays out.
Obviously missing Thomas and Neighbors is far from ideal, but when you look at the data, according to Sports Logic, in terms of 5v5 expected goals for, the Blues are 4th in the entire NHL, 4th best team. Like they have been generating, they're just not converting at the clip that you want to see. it's interesting because then, like, on the flip side, you've got the Pittsburgh Penguins, bottom 6 in the league in terms of expected goals against at 5v5. So, like, there should be opportunities for this Blues team, and being much lower owned of the two on a 2-game slate, like, I think they're the team that I'm most interested in trying to get over the field. And, like, just because you're generating quality looks and just because you're generating expected goals doesn't always mean you're going to score. Just ask the Edmonton Oilers. So it's not always, the Blues maybe like a little bit of paper tigers here early in the season because they are certainly generating enough. According to my data here, I've got the Blues as slight favorites in this one before the Hofer news. So it's probably pretty even, and I expect both teams to be solid options tonight. The Ottawa Senators and the Boston Bruins are up next. The Senators minus 166 home favorites, 3.5 implied total, just 2.7 implied total for the Bruins. Now, the Bruins are coming off of a game in which they beat the Colorado Avalanche over the weekend, which is insane to me. Jeremy Swayman was unbelievable in that game. Jeremy Swayman has looked every bit as good as the goalie we thought he was a couple of years ago. Last year, just I think is going to end up quite obviously being the outlier. He has been fantastic at 285 goals against average, 910 save percentage for this Boston team. Couple of bad games mixed in, but for the most part, pretty damn good. What's crazy is the charts. The charts just love Ottawa 3 in this game. And at 16% ownership, I think that I'm going to be hammering Ottawa 3 and just hoping the charts are onto something here. When you take a look at the matchup, Ottawa 3, the best matchup in this game. They are going to go head-to-head basically all night long with the David Pastrnak line. So what is so interesting about this spot is that not only are they going head-to-head with David Pastrnak's line, but that is the highest owned line on the slate. So, like, it could work in one of two, like in two ways at the same time. They could be leveraged in terms of ownership, but then also on the ice, shutting down the chalk of the night if they have a big game and they dominate puck possession, which has been the case. They have been, pretty damn good. A 54.6 Corsi for, controlling 54% of the expected goals. Like, this is a matchup in which they should dominate, because when you look at it, yes, Boston once had some success. These underlying metrics are every bit as bad as you thought they were going to be preseason. David Pastrnak is kind of a one-man band there. This line metrics are horrific, horribly bad. So Ottawa 3 with this, with much better metrics should theoretically dominate this matchup, and they could be massive chalk busters here if they can shut down Boston 1 and convert offensively. I think that this is maybe one of the best leverage spots I think we've ever talked about on this show. It is so interesting, and I am just, you said you were fascinated to see how that Pittsburgh St. Louis game played out. I am fascinated to see how this matchup plays out, because like, this is the charts, man. They could just carry us to victory here.
Yeah, absolutely. I think you paint the picture really well here of what makes Ottawa 3 so interesting. Obviously also helps that Shane Pinto is just absolutely like scorching hot to start the season here, man. He has been so good so far for the Senators. 9 games played. He's got 8 goals and 9 points. Absolutely shooting the lights out right now. 26.7% shooting percentage. Obviously don't think that's going to be sustainable in the long run of the season, but what is sustainable is the shot volume that he's had. 10.6 shots on goal per hour. That leads all Ottawa Senators, and second in this game only to David Pastrnak's 11 shots on goal per hour. He's playing good minutes every night, 19 minutes per game played here. So you don't really have to worry about, him not playing much, because they really, really like what they got here in the Shane Pinto kid. So I've got a lot of interest too, man. I think this Ottawa 3 spot is absolutely fascinating. I like Claude Giroux there. Obviously you get some correlation on that second power play unit. Doesn't look like the greatest matchup per se for the power play here for the Senators. But boy, I mean, it's just an absolute fascinating spot. And the one thing that's nice too, Ottawa's top power play unit only plays about 60% of the time. That's the lowest of any on the slate here. So I think it's really interesting if you think of it that way too. You can play him with Thomas Chabot on the blue line at $4,900. He's the quarterback on that second power play unit. Oh yeah, and Thomas Chabot has 5 goals and 14 points in 24 games against the Boston Bruins. So Hot Sam Bacho, got some interest in him on the blue line, but this Ottawa side does seem interesting for sure. And the other thing too is like you're really not only just fading that Boston 1 chalk, but you're also fading the chalk from these other Senators lines as well. The matchups are obviously good here for Ottawa 1 and Ottawa 2, but offensively it just hasn't been as successful as that third line. The top line, a good number of scoring chances. They're capitalizing at an okay rate, 2.5 goals per hour versus 2.4 expected. But that second line just really not generating a whole ton. Which is really interesting because when you look at the ownership on the Senators side, beyond Shane Pinto at like 28%, those top 2 lines are drawing quite a bit of ownership here for Ottawa. So, yeah, man, like I think you said it best. This might be one of the most interesting leverage plays that we've ever talked about on the show. I really think so. Really, really, really interesting spot for Ottawa. And the Boston side of things, I mean, Pastrnak or bust. Like really, he's projecting for like 50% ownership, which is absolutely absurd. But when you look at this slate as a whole too, like how many value options there are in terms of lines, it makes sense as to why there is so much Pastrnak going around. 20 goals, 45 points in 32 games played against Ottawa in his career. Obviously been great going up against him. So I don't really have any issue playing Pastrnak here tonight. That kind of feels like some chalk that you have to eat. But hey, who knows? Maybe he pulls a Bijan Robinson and only has 9 carries for 25 yards.
Yeah, that was something yesterday. This game is so fascinating because I think you have to play Pasta, because I mean, as Jim pointed out in the chat, is where I wanted to go to next. Big thing keeping Boston 1 viable is Levi Merilainen. I talked people into probably playing him the first start of the season. It went awful. The coaching staffs in Ottawa came out and said, we are not worried about Levi Merilainen's bad preseason. Well, they should have been because he was absolute dog shit in his first start of the season. They sent him down to the AHL. He's been pretty bad there too. 1-1 with a 3.5 goals against average and an .897 save percentage. He doesn't seem to be right now. So Boston, I actually, as much as I just talked up Ottawa 3 and not really liking Boston 1, the way the market was this morning with Swayman versus Merilainen, I bet the Bruins to win this game. And I think it is possible just with how bad Merilainen is. What is also interesting, and you talked about it a little bit, both of these teams are drawing a shitload of power plays and taking a shitload of penalties. So the amount of power plays in this game versus the amount of power plays projected in the other game is a substantial difference. Are either power play very good? Not really. Bruins PK is actually solid. So this really opens up the opportunity where there's the possibility that Ottawa 3 at 5v5 does completely take Boston 1 out of this game. The problem is the Bruins could see 5 power plays tonight. And if they do, then they are kind of inevitable at that point that David Pastrnak is going to get on the board. Morgan Geekie, Elias Lindholm, Pastrnak, all in that top power play unit. They fully correlate there. So you can see how there's still reason to have interest there. I just think that if you're building one lineup tonight, I don't mind fading them one bit. But if you're building multiple, I would certainly be having some exposure there. What are your thoughts here on the rest of this Bruins lineup? I have such a hard time taking a look at these stats and being like, yep, I'm playing Boston tonight. But again, Levi Merilainen stinks. There is no ownership coming in on the depth. But who do you really target with any sort of confidence? I assume it's the second line with Zach. He's got Lease. He's got power play 1 exposure. Victor Arvidsson's not a terrible hockey player at this day and at this point of his career. He's fine. Middlestad, he might be a terrible hockey player at this stage of his career, but their underlying metrics, they're still scoring 3.8 goals per 60. Their underlying metrics aren't terrible. Their matchup is far from ideal, but where do we go here if you're not playing Boston 1?
I'm probably okay playing a little bit of Boston 2 around Zaka and Arvidsson. When you look at the matchups here tonight, Boston 2 is going to see 49% of their ice time going up against that Ottawa Senators second line. You mentioned Boston 2 scoring 3.8 goals per hour of ice time. Ottawa 2 giving up 3.7 goals against per hour of ice time. There's certainly a route here for Boston 2 to get on the board. And with such low ownership and Maryland in net, I don't mind the idea whatsoever of getting to a little bit of this Boston 2 line. Maybe 10% in a 20 max or 150 max, or if you're playing a bunch of lineups, I think that's fine. Arvidsson, for as much as he struggled in Edmonton last year, and boy, he struggled in Edmonton last year, he's still kind of struggling here in Boston. But I think the one saving grace for Arvidsson, 9.2 shots on goal per hour of ice time. Volume has never been an issue for him. Generating 0.8 individual expected goals per hour. That's not a terrible number for a guy playing on the second line of the Boston Bruins. And he's had a lot of success against Ottawa in his career. 7 goals and 10 points in 9 games played against the Senators. So I think there's some reason to get to this second line here for the Bruins. Beyond that, I don't really know. I don't think Boston 3 is a really good option. They're going up against that top line for the Senators tonight. They've been, pretty good defensively, all things considered. Boston 3 is generating a lot of shot attempts, but not really getting much in terms of the way of, a ton of quality chances. I think for me, it's pretty much Boston. It's David Pastrnak or that Boston 2 mini stack or bust for me on this Bruins side of things.
We kind of forgot to talk about the rest of the Ottawa Senators because we were so excited about talking about the third line. The way this lineup is listed or shakes out right now makes them a little weird to stack, right? Stützle, Batherson, and Nick Cousins. I don't think Nick Cousins is a very good hockey player at this stage of his career, and I don't know why he's on the top line. He's, I guess, they're trying to turn him into Dollar Tree Brady Tkachuk. Is that what they're going for? Trying to get somebody to go in and bang and get the puck and do the dirty work? I mean, that makes sense. But he's not Brady Tkachuk. That's the, I guess, main problem. Stützle, Batherson, I think, are a fine mini stack. They're super high owned. I'd prefer Ottawa 3. I have a little bit more faith in I guess, just the value here on Ottawa 2 than maybe that top line. I think Stützle is very good, right? If we take a look at individual expected goals, 4 per game this season, according to Sports Logic on tonight's slate, Sidney Crosby's number 1, Rickard Rakell was number 2, Evgeny Malkin's number 2. Jake Neighbors is hurt. So 2 of the top 4 are hurt. It goes Crosby, Malkin, Geekie, Stützle, Pinto, Pius Suter, David Pastrnak, Brian Rust, and Jimmy Snuggerud round out the top 11. But 2 of those guys are hurt. So, Stützle's playing very, very good. He's getting a lot of chances. Is he converting? No. He's minus 2.2 goals scored versus expected is the 3rd worst mark on the entire slate. Only Brian Rust and Evgeny Malkin are worse. So Stützle's got some positive regression coming his way. Him and Batherson together have formed a strong duo in the past. Am I going to include Nick Cousins? Probably not. The third line, Dylan Cousins, is playing very, very solid hockey. I think they make a more appealing full stack at 11,400. What are your thoughts here with the Ottawa first and second line after you get, all your Ottawa 3 stacks jammed in?
Yeah, I kind of talked about it a little bit earlier. I don't necessarily love it. I don't think they're terrible plays or bad plays by any means. But I think when you take a look at the ownership here coming in on Ottawa and Ottawa 1 and 2, 24%, 20% here. I'm comfortable getting over the field on this top 6 of the Senators and, getting pretty heavily over the field here on Ottawa 3. My preference would probably be Ottawa 1 with that mini stack of Stützle and Batherson over that second line for the Senators here. Ottawa 2 just really struggling to generate offensively. Beyond giving up a bunch of goals against, they've been solid defensively. So I kind of like the look of this mini stack of this top line here, Stützle and Batherson. Again, not the greatest power play or anything like that here, but with how many opportunities they're probably going to have, I could definitely see them capitalizing on them. I mean, the Bruins are shorthanded 4 times per game, 3.9 times per game. That is ridiculously high. Just an extremely undisciplined Bruins team. and their penalty kill has been really good. But again, that's propped up by and large by, the goaltending that they've had here, and Jeremy Swayman being so good to start this season. So I've got some interest in this Ottawa top six, but certainly nowhere near as much as I do on that third line.
Yeah, when you take a look at it here, the power plays for the Senators, you can get kind of a mini stack of both the first line and the second line. You've got Ridley Gregg and Dylan Cousins on the top unit. You also got Sisson Batherson. So I think it's interesting if you're not playing Ottawa, or if you're not playing Ottawa 3. I think playing Ottawa 1, playing Ottawa 2 is fine. I think combining them for a power play stack is fine, especially if the Bruins continue to be as undisciplined as they have been. Just trying to see here. Where are we at? So Swayman has been the best goalie on the penalty kill of any goalie on tonight's slate by a considerable margin. 0.5 goals saved above expected per game. Half a goal he's saving on the penalty kill so far this season. So really, really good stuff from him there. Let's get to some defensemen, and we'll talk about the goalies as well. Get you on your way. So this is not the right tab. We got to bring up this one and make it a little bit smaller. There we go. Highest owned defenseman on the slate, Jake Sanderson, Thomas Chabot, your guy. Parayko, Falk, McAvoy, Carlson. So people definitely spending up at D tonight, which makes sense because there's so much value up front and no one's really that crazy expensive outside of Pasta. Philip Broberg does not project well, drawing a decent amount of ownership. According to our data, Artem Zub grades out really well. He's been on a bit of a heater as well, $3,400. I think he's super interesting and somebody you compare with Ottawa tonight. Parayko, the charts always love Parayko. 4,700 just does so much while he's on the ice. I really like Justin Falk tonight, $4,200. Top power play unit quarterback for them, a guy that shoots the puck a ton against a Penguins team that gives up the most shots against. Ryan Shea is just on a heater out of nowhere. I don't know where that came from. But yeah, I think you're probably paying up more than anything tonight. And if I'm paying down, it's probably going to be mostly on like a guy like Zub. Oh man, like that's the extent of it, I guess. Like I don't mind. Nikita Zadorov at 3,500 has been solid. Low rise back up with McAvoy tonight. Pete grades out okay. But like I think most of my interest does come in these Ottawa blue liners and paying up a little bit tonight. How about you?
Yeah, I agree with you, man. I don't mind paying up here on the blue line. I think especially when you look at the value up on the forward ranks, Artem Zub is a fascinating player so far this season. 2.1 points per hour of ice time. Like he is putting up a bunch of points here, largely through assists. But, the underlying numbers otherwise aren't bad. 6.1 shots on goal per hour of ice time. That's the most of any defenseman on this slate tonight. So I think he's a super viable play. Interestingly enough, up there on Ottawa 1, with Jake Sanderson, Shane Pinto in that third line, his most common defensive pairing has been that Sanderson-Zub duo, followed by the Chabot and Jensen duo. So yeah. I think getting to this Ottawa blue line is certainly a very viable route. And I think for me, my preferred option is getting there through Zub. I mean, when you compare the ownership of like him projecting for 8%, versus 35% for Jake Sanderson, 30% for Hot Sam Bacho, I really like the idea of going with Zub here tonight. He's probably my favorite defensive play on this slate. I think Andrew Peak at $3,300 is a super viable option as well. 8.9 blocks per hour of ice time so far this season. I think he's a really solid play there too. If you want to fade some of this, chalk or work around this chalk, I should say, that we're seeing on the blue line tonight. So I think those are a couple of interesting options. Tyler Tucker, $2,600. I suppose you could probably do worse. Just really doesn't play a whole lot. Only 12.7 minutes per time on ice per game played so far this season. But he's a guy who's definitely live for a block bonus there. Maybe a little bit of Harrison Bernicki at $2,500, projecting for 0.5% ownership. I think he's an interesting option too.
We have Andrew Peak is nearly averaging a shot block bonus per game. 2.8 shot blocks per game. He's actually only hit the bonus 4 times. He's had 4 games of his 10 of over 5 shot blocks in a single contest. Artem Zub, you mentioned it. The shot volume is up. It's crazy how much his volume is up. Like he's nearly doubled his shot volume from last year, and his minutes have actually decreased. It's kind of wild. But okay, let's get to the goalies here. Not many to talk about. It's always weird on a 4-game slate. Like the ownership is basically just spread out evenly because everyone's doing the same thing. They're not. They're not stacking against their own goalie, which makes a ton of sense. Don't want you to do that. Just got a question here about Dylan Holloway. Can anyone explain Dylan Holloway's minutes since he's technically fourth line but plays more than their first line? Is he just getting mixed and matched into everything? I mean, he plays a bunch, right? Like he plays in all situations for them as well. I think is the main thing. I want to pull up his actual usage here, so I'm not speaking out of turn. But he's not really seeing fourth line minutes. Like I don't think it's fourth line minutes per se, but so Holloway is averaging, where is it? Very limited power 5v5 minutes, or sorry, very limited short-handed minutes, but he's leads the team in power play time on ice and then in even strength time on ice. He is the leader among forwards. So yeah, seems to be out there a ton in different variations. Sees a lot of power play time. It's a team that's had a lot of power play chances away. How many power plays per game does this team have? Only 3. These numbers just are blowing me away. Ottawa and Boston. The fireworks, hopefully, in that game should be fun if we get a lot of power plays. Let's get to the goalies. We've got Levi Merelainen projected as the number 1 goalie overall tonight. I hate it. I don't like it one bit, but that's what the numbers say. That's what the betting market suggests. I don't understand it. He will not be my highest owned goalie of the night, I don't think. I really like Tristan Jarry tonight. I think he's my favorite. He's also the highest owned. How about you?
Yeah, I agree with you. I think Jari is my preferred goaltender tonight. I think the matchup is interesting. Obviously, we've seen, St. Louis struggling to score this year while still generating, lots of quality offense. Jari seeing a lot of volume as a goaltender, 29.4 saves per hour of ice time, 3 wins in 4 games played. He's got a 921 save percentage, man. He's been really good. And what's interesting too is he has been awesome against the Blues in his career. 9 games played, 7 wins and a shutout, 235 goals against average, and a 910 save percentage. That's the best of any goaltender on this slate tonight. So for as much as we talked about liking St. Louis and liking Ottawa, I think for me tonight, Jari and Swayman are my 2 favorite goaltending options.
Yeah, it's always weird on a 2-game slate, right? You're just going to mix and match. I don't really feel super convinced on any of these goalies because I feel like up front and the line stacks and all that feels pretty balanced in terms of my kind of interest across the board. I think I like Boston the least, but Merelainen is also terrible. So maybe I'm reverse jinxing him. I talked him up last time and he was awful. I'm talking badly about him tonight and he's probably going to play great. So we'll see. I'll definitely have some Merelainen, but I don't feel great about it. He does project as the best goalie overall. Okay. Let's play something a little different today. Usually we do our hat trick pick challenge. Today I want to do in DraftKings big contest, which I believe is the $15 tonight. What is David Pastrnak's ownership going to be instead of a hat trick pick challenge? Chances of us getting a hattie on 2 games are slim. So let's go. David Pastrnak's own percentage in the $15. Drop your pick in the comment section of the video on YouTube. Whoever's the closest without going over will get a $25 gift card to Nation Gear tomorrow. So we'll give one away no matter what. Whoever's the closest. David Pastrnak's ownership in the $15 on DraftKings tonight, Zach, is
going to be higher than 50%. I'm going to go well over. I'm going to say 62.5% ownership.
That would be bananas.
I mean, I think it makes sense. Like, he's $9K tonight. He's $2,000 more than Sidney Crosby and like $2,500 more than Brian Rust, the second and third highest priced forwards on this slate tonight. I think it's really easy to kind of just jam in a bunch of Pastrnak tonight, and I could very much see the field doing that.
So, sorry, repeat it again. It was 62%?
62.5%.
62.5. All right. I'm going to go 58.7. 58.7 for David Pastrnak. So if you want to participate in today's David Pastrnak challenge, comment your pick in the comment section of the video on YouTube, not the live chat. Whoever's the closest without going over, of course, we got to go with the Price is Right rules. You will get a $25 gift card donation gear, pick up some DFO swag. Brock, you playing Pasta? Does that mean we fade him? Seriously, but we can't use that Bruin depth. I guess you got to play Levi Merriline. This is the ultimate test of the David Pastrnak, Brock Seguin theory, and also like maybe a little bit of the test of like, can I reverse jinx Levi Merriline into a shutout? I think I did. So yeah, I think Levi Merriline is the play. David Pastrnak's the fade. All the money is on Ottawa 3 tonight. Let's go. Before we head out, obviously, we're going to do our absolute best to be live tomorrow at 2:30 p.m. Eastern for tomorrow's 16-game slate. Brock never gets pasta right. No, I do not. Never, ever. We'll do our best, 2:30. I'm going to schedule it for 2:30. Try to be here for 2:30. Keep an eye on things. We'll let you know. Because, yeah, there's 16 games. I have no idea. But we can't go live much later because the slate starts at 6. So I'm going to do my damnedest to get the charts ready early enough to do a 2:30 show tomorrow. As always, shout out to our friends at rotogrinders.com for providing projected ownership. They think Pasta is going to be owning 49.5% of contest tonight. If you want to get $20 off your first month of RotoGrinders Premium, you can do so by clicking the link in the description of the video on YouTube. Promo code FACEOFF. We also have a 20% off discount to Action Network Premium if you want to up your betting game with Action Network. We've got 2 NHL games, 16 tomorrow. Everyone's going to be building a 16-game parlay tomorrow. Tune in, actually, to the DFO Fantasy Show, which goes live tomorrow morning. I had Pete and DJ from What Chaos on today. We talked about tomorrow's free agent frenzy, frenzy face-off, frozen frenzy, whatever they call it now. We built a 16-game parlay, so if you want to ride along there, that will be up on this channel tomorrow. And yeah, join the DFO DFS Discord. Links in the description of the video on YouTube as well. Happy Sport Equinox. It's a big day across the sports world. Only 2 games in the NHL, unfortunately, but we got the Jays. We got Monday Night Football. The NBA's back. The NBA is insane. Like, how are we like a couple days in the season and like half the league's arrested by the FBI? It's unbelievable.
What an absurd sports league, man. It is. It really is. And I'm not a basketball guy whatsoever. I kind of follow from afar. But it sounds like it's been some really, really good basketball being played early on this season too. So best of luck to anybody who's in those NBA DFS streets, because they are a lot meaner than I am willing to dip into.
Yeah, funny story about me before we go. In my grade 8 yearbook, most likely to become an NBA player. I'm 5'8" if I'm lucky. So I wasn't really that close, but I was a big time baller back in the day and won mixtape tour. I love basketball, but not so much anymore. But yeah, so my grade 8 colleagues, if you're watching, I doubt you are, but if you are, you guys were way off. Anyways, thank you guys so much for tuning in. We'll see you guys back here for tomorrow's 16-game slate. Till then, good luck. Cheers.
Cheers.